The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, making a return so quick, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. Good morning.
Good morning, Frank. How was your weekend?
Oh, it was great. Listen to this comment from a viewer. Good morning, Frank. Well, good morning. When Phil gets in, let him know that we absolutely loved how he flash mobbed us with Joe. That was an unexpected, amazing treat. That was fun. Thanks for popping in on Friday.
Of course. I'm just kind of keep looking over my shoulder for Joe to
I know.
pop in on his way out.
I don't think he made the trip from Canasteo.
I don't think so either.
I hope not. I hope not. That's too cold for that this morning. We have so much to talk about. And one thing that kind of broke, I want to say it was Friday after you were on the program, which is this Local Cops, Local Crimes Act. We heard from Assemblyman Sempolinski a little bit earlier on. He released a statement about it. And we'll talk about energy and the budget and all that. But this is kind of breaking news. Your thoughts on Local Cops, Local Crimes Act?
Unfortunate. Not surprised. I think it's another an effort by Governor Hochul to virtual signal to the progressive and socialist left wing of her party, rather than to focus on the true need, public safety of the residents of New York State.
Yes.
I think you just have to look at the history of this issue. It's really started under Joe Biden, unchecked, unprotected borders, unvetted people coming through the borders. And you had, and I mentioned this before, you've had a merging of terrible, dangerous policy from criminal justice to immigration, converting. And what were those policies first at the federal level? An unchecked, uncontrolled, unvetted border.
Yeah.
You have a dangerous criminals coming across the border, illegal immigrants coming across the border. Many come to New York because we're a magnet, because we're a sanctuary state in a sanctuary city. We're a sanctuary state, virtual by executive order by Governor Cuomo, who basically told the no local cooperation with federal immigration and federal law enforcement. And then, so what happened? We had this individual come across the border, came to New York, committed a crime, because of our lax bail reform laws. Individual was released. Of course, the local law enforcement, even though this was a criminal, didn't reach out to our federal customs and border and our immigration officials to say, hey, we got an illegal immigrant who committed a crime. They should be out of the country. No, they just let the person go, didn't cooperate. That individual went down to Georgia, and what did that person do? Murdered Laken Riley.
I know.
And there's stories like that all over the country. A lot of people don't know who the other Laken Rileys are. You hear some names mentioned, but it's terrible. And then when you see these activists and agitators that are disrupting actual law enforcement investigations, and the tragedies happen, and these tragedies shouldn't happen, they're always able to remember their names, but never hear them utter the word Laken Riley or some of the other individuals we've lost due to the violent actions of illegal immigrants here illegally, dangerous, violent illegal immigrants. And I just don't understand it. And you look at how this is also festered even into our budget situation. In the past several years, not so much last year, we over $4.3 billion was allocated to fund services for migrants, hotels, food,
that credit card. Remember
the credit card, all those things.
Yeah.
And that $4.3 billion in that cycle is more than we spent on veterans, seniors, and the homeless combined. And with the cold situation we've seen out there, we think about our homeless here, and we do have homeless situations here in Corning and across the state. Wouldn't we want to have some of those resources focused to help those individuals? But yet they're handing out like blank checks to illegal migrants who come to our state and come to the city. And I think it's just unfortunate. And I just think that there is real, to me, it's like virtual signaling.
It is. Yeah.
To the progressive and socialist left, because she's afraid of that left wing of the party. Not on a whole, and not only on this, on a host of issues. I just don't understand it. And also, they're looking. I think the number I saw was another $2.5 billion through 2025. I mean, it's just like a blank check. And with all budget situations, they continue to spend money with no regard to whose people's money I think they ultimately figure it's the people's money, and just think it's their money, and they can spend it on whatever they want.
And she, in this case, it kind of blows my mind, because you would think after Lee Zeldin did such a good job running on public safety, that you would think that she would skid into that. I mean, let's face it, one of the reasons Trump won president is because he was tough on illegal immigration, and he ran on that.
Right.
So I'm confused at what she thinks she can get out of this, unless, like you said, she's concerned of her own lieutenant governor and that primary challenge.
Yeah, it doesn't make rational sense to me. Why wouldn't you want cooperation? I mean, you have right now the DMV can't cooperate with officials. Right. If someone pulls over and they're checking a plate, they won't provide that information. Traffic stops can be some of the most dangerous our law enforcement go through. So it makes no sense to me, and it's just a continued pattern of those states like New York, California,
we were just talking about
Illinois, Chicago. They want to just continue to protect. Ultimately, they're protecting dangerous illegal immigrants. That's what's happening. Rather than cooperating to get those individuals out of our state and out of our country.
Right.
And all what we're doing is we're jeopardizing the public safety of the residents here in our local communities.
We've got a couple comments from viewers. Good morning to all. Frank and Phil. Phil, do you think fracking will ever come back in New York State? We should change the name of all fossil fuels to life fuel, life affirming freedom energy, especially after recent weather conditions here in the Northeast.
Amen, my friend. Listen, I hope so. Unfortunately, the law in New York State, the way it is right now, is banned. What they should do, minimally, in my opinion, is do a pilot program in the southern tier. When we were talking about fracking back in 2010, 2011, 12, 13, we were talking about the southern tier.
Yeah.
We weren't talking. I mean, I represent the Finger Lakes. There's people talking about the Finger Lakes. We don't. I didn't want fracking in the Finger Lakes. They weren't going to frack in the Finger Lakes. The geography and the topography wasn't right for that. They weren't going to frack or drill in the New York City watershed or the Cats.
Right.
It was going to be done here in the southern tier because if you look, we had some of these companies are set up right in Chickamauga County, right over the border, and going to Pennsylvania. We had a tremendous amount of opportunity here in New York. We have an abundance of natural gas under our feet. We have an abundance of supply. And the price is sometimes, obviously natural gas changes with the market. Some of the problems we've seen with polar vortexes wasn't a lack of supply. It was a constraint. So it's not getting it to supply, and it's not allowing the supply to get, because they have an animosity towards natural gas, whether it's fracking, the pipelines, then air permits for new natural gas power plants. It's almost like a perfect storm of bad energy policy that we've talked about, because it started with the ban of fracking, then it started with this hostility towards approving pipelines to get the gas through New York State. You had the Nessie pipeline, which was thank God the DEC commissioner approved that this year. That's going to bring gas down to New York City and Long Island. In those areas, there's a huge demand. If the viewers don't recall, back then when they tried to approve it, they denied it, and then National Grid, who was doing the pipeline, said that we're not going to expand gas service to other people. What happened? Governor Cuomo threatened their license because he was a bully, and he was. We don't see him anymore, but that's
he's got a new radio show in New York. Did you hear that?
No, I did not.
You didn't catch it on Sunday?
No, I did not, and I probably won't catch any of them. But here's the thing: when he did that, he threatened their license. So National Grid said, "Okay, we'll figure out a way to get gas." So what are they doing? Still doing today?
Yeah.
Like hundreds of trucks, tanker trucks, lining up, coming in, emitting diesel emissions into the atmosphere. Because if they're concerned about diesel emissions, and then they come to it and then they inject it into the underground pipeline manually. I mean, that doesn't make any sense.
Makes no sense.
We have the constitutional pipeline, and because of that affects the marketplace for the whole Northeast. So Massachusetts, up in the Northeast, those areas are being having less supply come to their areas, and it's impacting the marketplace for them as well. So I just don't understand it.
No, I don't either. And I've heard a lot of people criticize the solar panels because when you drive by it, a place that has the solar panels up, it looks pretty bad, but I don't blame the farmers at all.
No.
Because they should have been making money off of fracking.
They should have.
They've had to pay these exorbitant taxes for how long? They can barely survive as farms. I don't blame them one bit.
No, and one of the concerns we always bring up, and even some of my Democratic colleagues and friends say, well, we don't want prime farmland. Well, neither do we, but what choice are you leaving the farmer? I mean, your taxes, regulations, not allowing them to frack their land, but also, the Farm Labor Act, that's one thing I pointed out to in 2019. Before we passed that, our farm labor cost as a percentage of net income was much higher than the national average, and it just expanded upon that when we implemented that. That's, with the, mandatory overtime, paying overtime, and even though they're providing other benefits to the farm workers working on those sites, and it just made costs much more exorbitant, much more difficult. So those farmers, you don't see the generational farm being passed on from generation to generation like you used to in the past. And some people want to do that, but the costs are so exorbitant, so they have to look for a lifeline to help pay their exorbitant property taxes and the costs that they're dealing with for their products and what they're providing. So yes, they look at that opportunity. But yes, our viewscape, our landscape, you see it, solar panels as far as the eye can see. Same with wind farms. And the thing about that, it's not reliable energy. It's not affordable energy.
No.
And I don't know.
It's taking up so much of our beautiful land and our landscape, like you said, that it's disheartening. But again, I do not blame anybody who has that land for doing it.
No, yeah, absolutely not. And even the Climate Action Council plan calls for 60 gigawatts of solar. Wow. 60 gigawatts. And for the viewer, again, I always get an energy. A gigawatt is the equivalent of powering 750,000 homes.
Yeah.
Our current generating capacity in New York is 41 gigawatts.
Okay.
So the Climate Action Council's plan talking about 60 gigawatts of solar.
Wow.
You need 8 acres per megawatt.
Wow.
That's 480,000 acres of land. Now consider, solar and wind. I talked to someone. Nuclear is being talked about, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
I think that needs to be. We need to look at expand upon that. And why is nuclear far superior? Number one, it's reliable. Number two, it's dispatchable. And three, land use. Governor Cuomo, the genius he is, decided to shut down Indian Point, which provided 25% of the power to New York City. That was a 2,000 megawatt or 2 gigawatt nuclear facility on 240 acres of land. Fitzpatrick up in central New York is about 800 acres on 700 megawatts on 800 acres. Look at the energy density, but yet you need 8 acres for a megawatt. I mean, the energy density, and then that doesn't work all the time.
We're going to run out of land.
And wind the same thing. It's like we got 30 megawatts. So that's just, I don't understand it. But again, you can't blame the farmer. But this is part of the energy plan. It's all about solar and renewables. And I get criticized because they say, well, you're a climate denier. Listen, climate's always changing. I do agree the climate is changing. But you need a balanced approach. And I'm not saying wind and solar shouldn't be a part of the portfolio. It should be a part of it, not the entire portfolio. Just like your stocks, cash, and bonds, and your 401k, or your 401k, you don't put it on stocks, cash, or bonds.
Right.
You diversify it to protect it. We need to do the same thing with our energy supply to make sure it's resilient, reliable, and there for when we need it. And that's why we need a balance. So yes, we need wind and solar and hydro, but you need nuclear, and yes, you need natural gas. And when we talk about natural gas, it's often referred to as a bridge fuel. It should be a permanent fuel. But so many people talk about it as a bridge fuel, but you don't tear down a bridge before you build a new one.
Right.
But that's exactly what my Democratic colleagues and the governor are doing with their energy policies and plans that they're continuing to move forward with them.
Think about if a Republican ever gets elected the governor again, how successful they'll be if they open up fracking. Right. What it would do for our economy, what it would do. I mean, it would be. It's almost like the Democrats are sitting on this huge victory kind of campaign if they wanted to. But some Republicans someday, it'll happen, will be governor, and they're going to have a huge economic boom.
Oh, it'd be a tremendous economic boom, and to be energy independent in our own state.
Yeah,
it would be tremendous.
All right, we got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back. Okay, I'm brought to you by Boss Security and Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. All right, we got a couple comments that we're going to read through here. Mark writes, in North Carolina is the new go-to state. It's leading Florida and Texas, for the people that leave in mass exodus from New York. Comment from Ken, I saw a clip on one of the legacy media propaganda news channels where they followed the 5-year-old boy and his illegal immigrant father back to Minneapolis from Texas. What a load of baloney they were spinning. The father didn't abandon his son. He was just walking ahead of him to warn others of the dangerous ICE threat. The ICE agents rough-handled the small child, treating him like a criminal. The two were so happy to have a good meal on the plane after days of not having much to eat. The country cannot survive and prosper long-term until the legacy media is held accountable for lying to the American people. This propaganda-style news reporting must stop. Thank you, Ken. This one says, good morning, Frank. I will ask the Assemblyman the question, why doesn't President Trump's emergency on energy override Hochul's ban on natural gas? It's a fair question.
It's a fair question. I wish it could. Obviously, if there was you need the governor to cooperate.
Exactly.
And so something like that would go to the courts. But obviously, when Lee Zeldin became the EP director, we were asking him to weigh in on some of these decisions too.
Yeah, a comment from a different viewer. Phil, good morning, by the way. Well, good morning. But please push for upstate New York to become an independent state, apart from the shallow-thinking Democrat-run cities. Whether they admit it or not, they need upstate more than we need them. We have the energy and agriculture. I feel like we've talked about that since the first time you were on radio back in the day.
There's been legislation back from Randy Cool and Don Davidson when they were in the Assembly and Senate. And my colleague, David D. Patro, has a different version of it, which was like, still one state, but 3 different territories, and that's been talked about. But it just seems really hard that would ever happen just because of the politics.
And the one-party rule right now, there's no appetite for it.
Yeah, it's really difficult.
Yeah. Comment from Mark. I worked for the gas fields for 10 years before I retired. They also employed a lot of people, from mechanics to truck drivers, welders, just to name a few. Thank you, Mark. All right, we had just kind of a different question from a viewer. And they said, here's a question for Phil. The Democrats always want to save the planet by throwing money at a problem. We do see that. As I drive around the back roads of Steuben and Schuyler counties, I see that the special neighbors among us like to dispose of their unwanted tires on every lightly traveled roadway. That is true. I know that the counties offer a day or two disposal for a few tires, but it clearly isn't enough. Could you plead with the Albany Democrats to offer a better option? The drive-through fast food debris is one thing, but the tires are another matter, and it's discouraging. There's a lot of tires. You do see people throw them out.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. Happen, but it could be we could do a much better job on that for sure.
Absolutely. All right. So there was a committee meeting with Alexandra Fazzulo. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. She was addressing her concerns about the Fort Edwards solar complex being built around the environmentally sensitive species area in Fort Edwards. How was it allowed the Office of Renewable Energy, citing a bureaucratic authority, has decision-making power to supersede any DEC regulations?
It's very concerning. This Office of Renewable Energy sitting has been very concerning to us since it's been established. It was an action taken by the governor and the Democrats and the legislature to basically try to expedite renewable energy projects, wind and solar projects, and it's wrong. You look at this has totally evaporated and eroded local control and local input on top of it. And I'll get to the DEC part in a minute because there's another issue that my colleague Andrew Bailey brought up at the budget hearing recently, last week at the energy hearing. Just how this usurps local control, because usually projects in the past, local communities would have to approve them.
Right.
If you want them, local community. And then we had Article 10, but Article 10 was a better process because at least you had 5 members from Albany who sat on the board, but you also had 2 local members, a county and a town official from that. At least they were part of the discussion. They were part of the process. Then when they created the Office of Renewable Energy City, that totally took any local input, local control. They say they listen, but they don't. If the town of Wayland didn't want it, if someone proposed a wind or solar project for the town of Wayland and they didn't want it, animosity, no. But if the state decided they was going to go there, it would go there.
It's the same with the solar panels and the battery.
The battery storage is the next big one I'm really worried about because of the fires and things like that. So then to double down on that either further, what they did is now the state took away the assessment valuation. Usually towns do their own assessment, their own assessors, legally trained, do assessments. They took away their ability to assess projects like that and put that in the hands of the state. So now you can now you have to deal with these projects coming in the community. Now you'll potentially get less money for them.
Right.
Fortunately, that hasn't been happening a lot here in Steuben County because I think our ID director has been really involved and engaged on making sure there's good pilots for those programs. And pilots are a way to address that. But if they want to circumvent that and say, I don't want to do pilots, they can try to pay less through these projects. On the environmental side, it's a big concern. I wasn't at that meeting. That was a Senate hearing, energy hearing. But my colleague, Andrea Bailey, talked about this, and he talked about a project up in her district where they're actually drilling, horizontally drilling.
Oh, really?
For electricity technology for solar up in her district. So you can basically drill horizontally for electric. But not for gas. And she was questioning the DEC commissioner, what are you doing about this? Why don't you have any say in it? She goes, well, she's engaging. So that's the hypocrisy of the left and the progressives in Albany, that it's almost like wind and solar come as you may. Even Senator Harcum I saw said we need solar to solve the problems. And I remember the former energy or NCON chairman in the assembly, who's no longer there. He said at a hearing I was with him at, he goes, it makes no sense to me. We're clear cutting, and that's what has happened. We're clear cutting trees and forests to build solar. I mean, we learned in elementary school about photosynthesis. Trees absorb carbon dioxide.
Mm-hmm.
We want them to absorb that carbon. That's part of the process.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, we're clear cutting them so we can put up solar panels. And then you don't even get into the whole part about the waste of solar when that lifespan used. What happens to them?
Right.
There's no recycling program. There's no disposal program. Who bears the cost and burden of them? Ultimately, that's going to be borne by the local people.
Right, and safety. When we've seen some of the connections with these solar panels and China's involvement, that isn't even conspiracy theory. That was on the mainstream media that they were putting extra piece in there where they could shut down the solar panel, almost a cyber attack type things. Okay, a couple comments from viewers. What's the real reason Stefanik dropped out of the governor's race? She was the best candidate. She was a great candidate, but we can move on from that. Ken writes, if a group of people wanted to shape the state to supply the type of energy that will make their investments and the investments of their benefactors soar, you need to, 1, scare the public on impending disaster, check, reduce the supply of a cheap, plentiful energy source, stop fracking, check, and limit the amount of cheap transmission sources, stop building new pipelines, check. Thank you, Ken. Hey, what did you think? I don't know if you saw this, Governor, oh no, we got to take a break. I'll ask you when we return. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this. The Frankly Speaking Roof Cam brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. A couple comments from viewers. With all the crazy spending towards the illegals by the Democrats, where is the public outrage? I'm thinking that if they open up fracking while Democrats are in control, I'm afraid it will just expand the crazy spending, not solve fiscal responsibility. Well, yes, if they have money, they're going to spend it, that's for sure, even if they don't have money. Sure. Comment from a different viewer. Good morning, Frank. Good morning, Phil. Well, thank you. Always good to hear from Phil, even if I don't always like what he has to tell us. That is true. Okay, so on, I think it was Saturday, ex-Governor George Pataki, we mentioned it a little bit earlier on in the program. I want to get your thoughts. His theory is that Governor Hochul will raise New York State taxes after the election, kind of like what she did with the congestion tax.
I can totally see that happening, and the governor is focused on one thing, November of 2026.
Yep.
And also June, in case because she has a primary. But 2026 is her year to just worry about. You see with what she did with congested pricing in the last election, and then as soon as that was over, she implemented it.
Right.
You see how you know the new mayor in New York City wants to increase income taxes. The governor said we're not going to increase income taxes. We're not going, and she's been good to hold the line on that, but for how long?
Until November.
Especially because you have a major wish list. I mean, this massive free child care plan and everything else he wants to do for free down there. And New York has to be a part of it. They have to approve the tax increase for down there. And that's just going to be another drain on more people leaving our state. But also on the energy policy stuff, she delayed the All-Electric Buildings Act for about a year. The 100-foot rule, that's been delayed till December of 26, not December of 25 when it was supposed to take effect.
Interesting.
So you see these policies, you continue little delays of the electric school bus, but not enough. And so, yes, I think Governor Pataki is onto something that a lot of us have been observing as well.
And you mentioned that with the electric buildings. That was so interesting to me because we've talked about it before, but they do their virtue signaling. They get their awards or pats on the back for doing that. And then the time starts ticking away. And then we looked at it and it was, in a month from now. And we brought this up Friday quickly. I think the same thing's going to happen with this lawnmower ban. So they want to ban lawnmowers by, 2029, I think it is?
That's something like that.
Yeah. And then you have people talking, and we mentioned it when you were in on Friday, the worst day you could release the press release, which was about snow blowers, was last Monday when our snowstorm, banning those as well.
Yeah, who's going to be out there with an electric snowblower? I mean, are you kidding me? And the way these things last and work, nothing would you work well in the cold weather.
No.
You need something that's going to work, and electric's not going to work like a gas-powered mower or snowblower.
Right.
And that's just amazing to me, the policies that they're implementing. And we talked about the all-electric buildings. I mentioned 100-foot. The other one I forgot to talk about was the cap and invest.
Right.
And that's going to be a sticker shock for everyone, even by their own admission. This is on delay because there was a lawsuit. She delayed it. The administration delayed it, and then the environmental group sued, won in court.
Right.
The judge says you need to release the regs by February of this year. They appealed. The Department of Environmental Conservation, the state appealed it, rightfully so, and I'm glad they did. But by their own admission, if this is implemented, it will increase gas prices at the pump for New Yorkers by 62 cents a gallon, and will increase natural gas home heating costs by 80%. That's their policy. They own that. They can't run away from it. They want to. So why is the governor just is trying to delay it? Why not put it in her budget that she wants to pause that? Why not put in your budget that you want to delay the implementation of the CLCPA? Pause it, because there's a need to pause it. The New York Independent System Operators have said there's a reliability grade, both short-term and long-term shortage that needs to be gaps that need to be addressed from a reliability and safety perspective. The PSC right now can pause it just based on safety and reliable service. Whether they will do it, I don't know, but I think that's the best thing. He could do it, and then he could take all the heat off the governor.
Right.
But it's the right thing to do. But they just keep pushing and pausing this stuff. One thing, but these things are huge price tags. With cap and invest, which I told you, all electric school buses, which is the mother of all unfunded mandates for our local property taxpayers. And the thing I've said over again, I think it's worth repeating. We're asking our school districts to convert their entire fleets by 2035.
Right.
State of New York doesn't have to convert their heavy-duty fleet to 2040, a full 5 years after our schools. So why are we asking our school districts and local property taxpayers to be the guinea pig for this social experiment?
Breaking news, Phil. Punxsutawney Phil saw his shadow after emerging that's a change of pace, huh? From his den in Pennsylvania, meaning 6 more weeks of winter.
Why am I not surprised?
It sounds about right for this year. Hey, we haven't really had a chance to talk about this, but maybe a little bit. The budget overall, we talked about the state of the state. What did you think of Governor Hochul's budget proposal?
Well, obviously spent more than last year. We're talking about $260 billion, but I like to use more than $250 billion to put it in perspective. I mean, it's more than Texas, more than Florida. In some ways, it's more than them combined, but I think Texas is on a 2-year budget cycle.
Yeah.
It's unsustainable. It's uncontrollable spending and debt. And again, I just think my colleagues continue to think it's their money and forget it's the people's money. Now, don't get me wrong, when you spend that much money, there are going to be some good things that are going to come out of it when we have a final budget.
You would hope, right?
You would hope, but the problem is, even with the amount of money we're spending, there are those who are calling to increase taxes. Yeah. We do not have a revenue problem in this state. We have a spending problem in this state. So, but when I look at the analysis of the budget, I mean, the big battle is going to be about child. I don't know if it's a battle. I mean, child care is a necessity. We need it. But the amount of money they're talking about free child care, I don't see how that's
sustainable. For such a weird niche.
Yeah.
It's what is it, like 2-year-olds and only a certain. It's not a very big number what they ultimately showed what this kind of test is.
Yeah, it's gonna be concerning. And the thing I look at when I look at these policies that are really driven for downstate, what are we going to do? Because we have a child care, deserts up here in the southern tier in the rural areas. We need to make sure there's a balance with that, and I'm just really curious to see how that plays out. So I think that, and will there be any type of tax increase in any of this budget? I don't think there will. I think the business taxes, she's extending the taxes that were put on place before. So I think those are in it. There are good things. I mean, I was just up at SUNY up at the Corning Community College on Friday. Our new president, Dr. Terrence Finley, great guy. He's going to do a great job and we were talking about some of these programs. Like SUNY Reconnect, I think is a really worthwhile investment. It's an investment that pays dividends. The initial plan was for these high-end demand fields like AI, technology, nursing, and now she's talking about proposing it to like logistics, air traffic controllers. Lord knows we need air traffic controllers, emergency management. I think that's great because now you're helping get into a population, especially with job retraining. I think those are dollars, but budgeting is about priorities. We have to prioritize the dollars we have. I'd rather see money go for those types of programs rather than $800 million for the Hollywood film tax credit to subsidize film tax credits in New York State. We started the budget hearings last week. We had agriculture and parks, we had energy and environment, and we had elementary and secondary education. This week, tomorrow, we have transportation, which will be a big issue. Wednesday's mental health, and Joe Sempolinski, who was here Wednesday, he's the ranker on mental health, and that's an issue we've been focusing on. And mental health is something that you have bipartisan support on.
Right.
There's a definite mental health problem we have in our communities all across the state, but we need to make sure there's a balance and make sure, especially in our rural communities, that there's a need there. And so that's the process over the next month. Tom O'Mara, our state senator, he's the Senate Finance ranker. He's doing yeoman's work on that committee because he has to sit through all these laborers committees. Now, I was on the energy one. That started at 9:30 and finished at after 9 p.m. at night.
Wow.
But that's what we do. We examine the budget. The governor's agency heads come in, and stakeholders come in, and we ask questions, try to get an idea. So at the end of that concludes at the end of February. Then probably the second week in March, the Senate and the Assembly will pass what they call their one-house budgets, which basically sets out their blueprint, their wish list. And those two budgets probably will have tax increases. They've always had them in our House, and we'll spend a lot more money than the governor even spent. And then from there, we'll have a joint conference committees where we go in and say a few words. It really kind of just window dressing, and then negotiate from there. But there's a lot of issues. I mean, on the transportation side, I would say that's something I want to look at. Tom will, especially on the CHIPS, the local funding for local, which is critical, especially with the rising inflation rate for construction cost materials. I'm sure we'll be doing something locally with Chris, myself, Joe, with our local highway superintendents here locally, like we've done the past few years before we do one in Albany. Certainly the energy policy stuff we're looking at. The other area I'm looking in a couple weeks, the Commissioner of Corrections is coming in. What's going on with there? I mean, earlier this summer, we all know what happened last year with the worker stoppage. What you want to call it, a strike, a protest, call it what you want, but it came about because of the conditions that our brave men and women working in corrections facing. The HALT Act, which we've seen a rising spike of violence, inmate on staff assaults, even inmate on inmate assaults. There was an agreement last summer between the unions and the administration on that to make some modifications. So not a full-out repeal. I think there should be a full-out repeal, but my comment says at least it's a step in the right direction. It's an acknowledgement. She didn't put any of that in her budget. If it was a priority to her, why not put those in her budget? She's negotiating from a position of strength. And you see it. She fired 2,000 corrections officers, but yeah, we still got a lot of National Guards people inside our facilities and spending significant amounts of money.
I know the Empire Report reported on Friday that it was costing us about $1 billion already.
Yeah, it's costing a lot of money. It's going to cost us continued more money. And I think that budget hearing, a lot of those details will be ironed out. Those are some of the questions I look forward to talking to and questioning the public commission or the Commissioner of Corrections about. The death gamble is something I've been really pushing for a number of us, which would protect the pensions for our corrections officers, because if 25 years of retirement age when you can secure retirement, but say you decide to keep working past 25 because there's a shortage and you want to continue to help. If you were to die while you were working in service, your pension would not be secured for your spouse.
Makes no
All
sense.
they would do is get a death benefit 3 times your annual salary, which is not enough and not adequate. We could have done that. We passed it unanimously in our House several years in a row. Governor Cuomo vetoed. Governor Hochul vetoed, said we need to be part of the budget, but she never put it in her budget and never got negotiated in the budget, which I don't understand. It's just another continuous slap and insult on the brave men and women who work in these correctional facilities. There's so much more we could do from death gamble, HALT reform. Those things would go a long way for recruitment and retention, but apparently they don't seem to want to do that.
Nope. We got to take a short break. Stay with us. We'll be right back with Frankly Speaking after this.
You've been putting back a few, and a few becomes a few too many. For a moment, you think about calling for a ride. Nah, you live nearby. What's the worst that can happen? You get pulled over, your insurance goes up, you lose your license, you total your car, you kill someone.
More cars. Lower prices. Simmons Rockwell. Make car buying simple when you drive your deal at a Simmons Rockwell location near you, where you'll always find more cars at lower prices.
It's the home of Tivity. Release your inner audio engineer. Create with the 3D printer. Make your clothing ideas come together with our sewing machine rentals. Or come to the library event nights to chat with those within your community. All with your library card. Go to your local library today.
Going to be a chilly start here for many of us, including our area in Elmira, with temperatures in the feels-like range of the low teens. We'll warm up to feel like we're near 30 throughout the afternoon. Sunshine expected here throughout much of the area as we go throughout your Monday. Average high is 34 degrees, so we are still on the cooler side for the entire area. A look at our 7-day forecast. We've got a wintry pattern setting up here for the end of this coming week.
Frankly Speaking Roof Cam, brought to you by Boss Security in Horseheads. Contact them today for all your business and home security needs. We are back, broadcasting live from the Hesselson studio. In that studio, Assemblyman Phil Palmesano. We got a lot of comments from viewers. This viewer writes, Phil seeing a shadow, not you, Puxatani Phil. Phil seeing his shadow in 6 more weeks of this kind of weather is just wrong. Cuca Lake is almost totally frozen. Yes, I think we're all getting a little sick of winter here. A comment from a different viewer. They're trying to make New York the East Coast California, and we all saw how that worked out and is working out. Thank you very much. Good morning, Frank and Phil. Like I said on Friday, look at Bill Gates and Larry Fink from BlackRock now have jumped off the climate crisis bandwagon onto the fossil fuel bandwagon because they're pushing for the AI data centers that they are heavily invested in. They know that they need the reliable fuels to power those centers, and if you look at the 270,000 acres of land that Bill Gates has purchased in 19 states across America, none of them are in the Northeast. Maybe it's because we have too many regulations. All right, comment from a different viewer. Please, Phil, we in upstate need to become an independent state before the idiots ruin us. Who cares about Albany? Please get the idea of becoming an independent state on the county ballot. And if I may suggest, just as Paul Revere cried, the British are coming, we could call our new state Revere. I like that. And finally, the reason the state's going to delay their all-electric vehicle enactment is to see how the local ones do. We're going to be the guinea pigs at our expense. Yeah, they are. The EV the buses for schools. We are definitely going to be the guinea pigs. Speaking of energy, we talked about this quickly on Friday when you popped in when Joe was here. Tell us more about this $2.5 billion reserve.
Yeah, what happens is your viewers are paying not only supply and delivery, but you're paying taxes, fees, and assessments on your bill. It's assessments that you're charged that are collected that the utilities hold on to. And it's in the reserve accounts, and then NYSERDA has some that they're using for their programs. It's estimated over $2.4 billion. And then when NYSERDA wants the money, they call for it. It's been approved by the PSC through a raise. Mm-hmm. They call for it, and then the utility have to send that money to them so they can spend it on green programs. My argument that I question and others brought up too, the NYSERDA chair and the PSC chairman, because they were both there at the same time. And I almost had to explain it to him because, well, I don't understand. I go, what do you want? I basically walked through me. Yeah. He knows it. Yeah. They know it. It was kind of, I think, disingenuous. Yeah. I think give that money back, direct relief to the ratepayer. If you talk to the person watching your show today, they want immediate direct ratepayer relief now. They're seeing the rising utility bills. They're seeing the increasing rate cases that are going on that's being proposed right now. They go from one rate case to the next rate case, and it keeps going up. Costs keep going up. So that's something we could do to provide direct ratepayer relief. And I think if you ask someone, would you rather have direct ratepayer relief, or would you rather subsidize someone electric vehicle person? Would you rather have direct ratepayer relief or subsidize someone's electric snowblower purchase? Right. I think you would, or electric heat pump. I think people want ratepayer relief, and we have that funds that already been approved, already been paid by the ratepayer. We can give some back to them. Mm-hmm. It's just like when we talk about taxes. Let's give it back to the taxpayer because you're already paying too much. Let's give some of this back to the ratepayer and provide them some direct relief. Now, that's a positive thing we could do, but it doesn't seem like there's an interest to do it. But there are some states, I believe it's either Connecticut or Massachusetts, I brought that up to the hearing, Democrat governor, Democrat-controlled legislature, they're doing that. They're not spending the money on the green program. They're going to give it back to the ratepayer because they acknowledge there's a need to provide relief to the ratepayer. But unfortunately, my colleagues in Albany and the governor doesn't want to be able to step up. She could do this. She could lead this, put it in her part of the budget. We'll see what happens with her budget when she does her 38 amendments. But none of this is in her budget now.
No, and to your point, I just got so many great questions coming in. I appreciate those. Keep them coming in. We're nearly out of time. But yes, of course, it would be a great thing for them politically, too.
Sure would.
Think if Hochul did that and gave you money back. There's going to be a lot of people, because she knows what she's doing when it comes to giving money away around election time. Oh, yeah. Right?
I mean, the inflation rebate check.
Yeah. What'd you do with yours?
Yeah.
Went on vacation?
I blinked.
Yeah, exactly. It was gone my first time I went to the grocery store. Hi, Frank. Thanks for what you do. Well, thank you. The corrections officer in New York are still abused, working back-to-back shifts with no sleep. Thanks. Yeah, I know.
It hasn't gotten any better. It just continues, and it's unfortunate. But yeah, she fires 2,000 of them when they were just trying to stand up to protect themselves and their families.
And like they said, the inmates, I remember at the time I thought it was so forceful, this statement. The inmates get to see their families more than the corrections officers.
Oh, they sure do. They sure do. And they get unlimited phone and iPad use. Yeah. And corrections officers, when they go into their phone, they keep their phone in the car. They can't bring their phone. They can't communicate with their family. If they're getting mandated for a double shift, they're going to have to call from the inside line and say something. It's crazy. It's like we're prioritizing criminals over law enforcement. You see it with our public policy, whether it's public policy, our policies, our criminal justice policies, our public protection policies favor inmates, favor dangerous individuals over public safety, crime victims, and law enforcement, whether the law enforcement on the street or law enforcement inside our correctional facility.
And now with what we talked about.
And with the ICE.
With ICE.
Yes.
I mean, full circle. And that's perfect because we are out of time. Can you believe it? That went fast. Don't worry. You didn't have to worry about Joe popping in. Joe must have stayed home, stayed in the warm.
I don't blame him.
But I just want to remind everybody, don't forget that today is the Corning Rotary Club Groundhog Day breakfast for dinner. It's tonight from 4:30 till 7 p.m. at the Corning Paint and Post High School cafeteria. $10 for a tall stack, $7 for a short stack. So don't miss out on that. And Rotary does such a great job. Phil, thanks for being on the program this morning, and we'll have to do this again real soon.
Sounds good.
Enjoy it in Albany. This is a fun time, right?
Yeah, I think of better ways to have fun.
Yeah. Think about us when you're in your 14-hour meetings, all right?
Right.
We'll be thinking of you.
See you, everybody.
All right. Join us tomorrow for Frankly Speaking. I look forward to it already.